Thanks for the souvenir, Richard. Good afternoon. My name is Scott Reilly. Currently, I am the elected district attorney for the 36th district. It's actually changed since Richard was involved. They just renamed it in January. But anyway, the district is the same. It's Burke, Caldwell, and Catawba County. And however, prior to becoming the elected district attorney, I was a student just like you. In fact, I think I had classes in here. I graduated from Lenore College in 1985, and coming into here, it's really changed a lot since 1985, a lot for the better. It was Lenore College when I attended, but I graduated in 1985. I graduated from law school in 1989, passed the bar in 1989, and my first job was actually as an assistant district attorney in this same district. And that's where I got my trial experience and being a district attorney, and enjoyed that. But when you get married and you have kids, you try to make a little bit more money, and there's more money in private practice. So I opened up a small practice in downtown Newton, where I handled primarily criminal cases for probably the next 25 years, from 1995 up until just this past January. I was a defense attorney. Wanted to become the district attorney for a number of reasons. This case actually played a part in that decision. Ran for district attorney in 2014, unfortunately lost. Ran again in 2018, fortunately won, and I took office January of this year. In fact, I think today is my 100th day in office. So I've kind of been on both sides, and it is a new perspective being the elected DA after being a defense attorney for 25 years. I'm married. We've raised 4 children. My wife and I have raised 4 children. We have 2 grandchildren. We live in Conover, and that's kind of my quick biography. The players involved, I know you've been doing this case all year long. Of course, you know Zara Baker, 10 years old, from Queensland, Australia. Really cute, really blonde, had a lot of sympathy going for her, a beautiful smile. Unfortunately, had cancer that took away most of her hearing, and what most people see is also took away her leg. She had a prosthetic leg. But what most people remember about her was her smile and her grit, her determination, and she really captured Catawba County, if not North Carolina, and really the nation and Australia during this period of time, like no little girl I've ever seen. Elisa Baker was her stepmother. That was my client. Elisa grew up and lived in Caldwell County, just up the road, but part of this same district. Developed an online relationship with Adam Baker, who lived in Queensland, Australia. Lisa actually made the trip to Australia, developed a relationship with Adam, and brought Adam and and Zara back here, where they married and had a little family unit. They lived in Caldwell County for a period of time, and then moved down to Hickory, not more than about 1.5 miles away from here, where they had a little home off of 127, where some of the events occurred. Other players you've already heard from, Jay Gaither. Jay was the elected district attorney during this period of time. He was the one that I negotiated with, along with Lisa Dubbs, who we spoke to on a daily basis, who we made the plea arrangement with, our little settlement agreement. That was done with Jay Gaither, and then also did our plea bargain to end this case once and for all. Lisa Dubbs, I think you've already met with her. She is also a defense attorney. She specializes more in capital cases, more your newsworthy murder cases. When I was first appointed, Lisa was not charged with murder. She was charged with obstruction of justice, a relatively minor felony. It's a felony, but it's still a relatively minor felony where generally people don't go to jail even if you're convicted of it. But that's what I was initially appointed to represent her on. Lisa came in on the, it appeared that Lisa was going to be charged with some type of homicide at some point, so she was provisionally appointed on that anticipatory charge of murder when it looked like Elisa was going to be charged, and Adam was going to be charged with murder. The other player that I dealt with was Tom Atkins. He was the chief of police of Hickory. Hickory Police Department had the jurisdiction over this case. They performed the investigation primarily along with help from the SBI, the FBI, the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department, and some other agencies as well. But it was basically headed by Tom Atkins' office. Where these people are now, Elisa is serving a 15-year sentence for the conviction of second-degree murder for Zara. That will be followed by an additional 10-year sentence for unrelated federal drug charges that she also received. Adam, as far as I know, is back in the country of Australia where he lives. Jay Gaither is no longer the district attorney, and he is, I'm not really sure what Mr. Gaither is doing at this time. Lisa Dubbs is doing the exact same thing she always did, very capably representing people charged with serious felonies, some of the more noteworthy, newsworthy cases, not just in Catawba County, but in North Carolina. Tom Atkins, the chief of police, he retired from being chief of police, took a job with Apple for a period of time, and then when I became district attorney in January, I have all the respect in the world for Tom Atkins, his character and his abilities, and I asked him to become my investigator in the DA's office, so currently he is my investigator. So it's kind of weird how all these players have changed and where they are now, looking at almost exactly 10 years later. I'm going to go as quickly as I can through my kind of spiel about how I saw the case from my perspective, my dealings with Elisa, why I did the things or made the decisions that we made. Hopefully that'll take us to a 30-minute point, and then we'll have 20 minutes and you ask me whatever you'd like and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. This case began when I received a phone call about 3 o'clock in the morning from Elisa Baker from the Catawba County Jail. There was somebody else on the phone. They said, this is the woman that she wants to speak with you about representation. You probably know about this child that's missing. I didn't know about a child that was missing. I hadn't followed the news for the last few days, so I had no idea what they were talking about. But I did speak with Elisa on the phone for a short period of time, and of course it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I said I will be up in the jail about 7:30, and we can talk about it then. Just coincidentally, I had 2 other murder cases that I was taking on, and their first court appearances were going to be that same day. I met with Elisa just to introduce myself very briefly, and then I was court appointed to represent her for obstruction, not murder, not anything else, but the obstruction for filing a false police report when she had informed the Hickory Police Department that the child, as far as they knew, had been kidnapped because they received a ransom note. Elisa eventually told the Hickory Police Department before I was appointed, before I had met with her, that that was a false report, that she had written up the ransom note, that it was not true. However, she said she had no idea where Zara was at that time. That was her initial story. I met with her a little bit later that afternoon. All she told me was that she had no idea where Zara was, that she believed Zara to be alive. Her hypothesis, her possibilities of what may have happened was that the biological mother from Australia had come unbeknownst to them and had kidnapped the child and possibly taken the child back to Australia. In your initial consultations with your clients, I just try to get basic information. I try to get the story from them as best I can so that I can decide what to do from there. I never try to confront clients with people I think that are not telling me the truth. I don't know one way or the other. I haven't received the state's discovery. I'm only hearing one side of the story. However, a lot of red flags went up in speaking to Elisa Baker. I probably met with her, once a day for the next 4 days or so, and every day I would find inconsistencies in her story. A lot of red flags went up, but I never confronted her as far as calling her a liar or tell me what really happened, because I just quite frankly don't believe you. I wrote everything down. I'm just trying to get this information. At the same time, an unbelievable amount of publicity began in Catawba County. I've represented a number of people for some newsworthy cases. Every once in a while I'd be asked by a reporter about the case, especially after a disposition of a case. Nothing big, nothing like what occurred in this particular case. I was not ready for it, not prepared for it, had never seen anything like it. When I walk out of my office and there are 7 TV stations outside my office, everybody wanting and putting a microphone in your face. There were 3 reporters or news stations from Australia 6, 7, and 8, that's the way they call it in Australia, as well as WBTV, the Hickory Daily Record, as well as other news, national news organizations like the Nancy Grace Show, which was kind of popular during that period of time. So it is weird getting phone calls from Nancy Grace, from Good Morning America, all the Good Morning Show, all those different shows that are national, calling me on my cell phone. In a way, it's flattering. In a way, you think you're kind of a big shot, but I wasn't prepared for it. And if I had any way to go back in time, if I had a mulligan, my dealings with the press would be the one major thing that I would change about this case, because so often, if I could do it again, I would have just said no comment and shut my mouth. Because it seems like every time I did say something, I try to be honest, I try to answer questions, but was it doing my client any good? Which is the ultimate goal of the defense attorney, is to zealously represent your client. And if I'm giving a statement that doesn't actually help her, then I am not doing my job to the best of my ability. I didn't realize that at the time, but in hindsight, I should have had no contact whatsoever with the press. A lot of pressure was mounting, not just on me, with newspaper people trying to ask what happened, what happened, what happened. Quite frankly, I didn't know what happened at that point. All I know is what Elisa has told me, was that she didn't know what happened, that as far as she knew, the child had been kidnapped, and she did not know where the child was. There was a tremendous amount of pressure on the district attorney's office in finding a resolution and giving the people of Catawba County and the nation at that point some answers. A tremendous amount of pressure on the Hickory Police Department, who were trying to follow every single lead, who were doing everything they could. They put all their resources. And every night I would see on the TV, it was nonstop coverage. You would see helicopters. If there was a rumor that this child was put through a wood chipper in Burke County, they had 3 helicopter choppers over the wood chipper while the Hickory Police Department was looking through it. It was truly a tremendous amount of publicity. It was non-stop. It was all-consuming. I have a pretty busy criminal practice where I have to be in a number of courts every single day, and it was difficult because this case required 100% of your time, and unfortunately to the detriment probably of all of my other cases. I tried to make a bond modification for Elisa. This is where one of my examples for not dealing with the press the way I should have. I walked out of court one day, and there were probably 6 reporters all there waiting for me, walking with me as I walked to the stairwell, and I finally stopped, and I tried to answer their questions. The question was, are you going to file a bond modification. You're going to try to get Elisa out of jail. And quite frankly, the answer at that point is no, that's not in her best interest. Best interest is to just stay there and let's wait and let's see what happens. But you feel like you've got to respond. You're on the defensive when the press is asking you questions, or at least I felt on the defensive, like I had to answer in the affirmative. So as an attorney, I said, yeah, we're going to file a motion for bond reduction. Not really even thinking about the answer. And the next question is, when are you going to file it? Well, this afternoon. And then you're kind of stuck. Well, I've got to file a bond reduction that afternoon. It's heard the next day. And just like I knew it would be, our bond was not modified or decreased. It was actually increased, which was very embarrassing. But if I thought about it, that was going to be the result. That's why I should never have filed the bond reduction motion in the first place, is because with the climate, with the atmosphere, with our district court judges, with the pressure that was going on, nobody was going to lower her bond. I knew that. I should have known it. Should never have filed the motion in the first place. After I met with Elisa a number of times and taken her basic story, I got in my head that she's just not telling me the truth. At that point, Lisa Dubbs and Steve Ellers, an investigator, had been appointed. And Steve and myself met with Elisa, and we had decided beforehand that we don't believe what she's saying. It's time to find out the truth. Because we really can't make decisions, we can't decide where to go until we know what the truth is. And we confronted her with the number of inconsistencies, the number of lies, the number of things that just didn't ring true. And we told her, we cannot help you if you're going to be lying to us. And we know you're lying to us. And I didn't really know where Elisa was going to go with that. She could go off into her, I called it zombie land, where I just went off into space and did not speak to you. And we had an uncomfortable silence for probably about 3 minutes where she just sat there. When she finally looked at us and she said, now keep in mind at that time, we were all hopeful that Zara was alive. That was our hope. I think that was everybody's hope. But at that point, she told Steve and I, she said, Zara's dead. And I was not ready for that. I was not ready for that. She went on to say that Zara had died of natural causes. That, because of her health condition, that she was not very healthy, that she had some type of cardiac arrest. She would not wake up, that Elisa had performed CPR, could not revive her, and she expired. And that she and Adam had buried the body or taken the body and placed it where it could not be found. The reasoning for that was that Adam was past his visa date, would be deported if something like this happened, which seemed somewhat plausible to me. And really at that point I felt we had received the truth. She had finally broken down. She said that Zara was dead and that they had placed her body somewhere. She said it was natural causes and that it was Adam's idea to take the body and dispose of it up in Caldwell County. She drew us a map of where the body was. Steve and I were excited in that we finally felt that we had the truth and that if we found this body, we could show the police that, one, she died of natural causes. There's not a very good explanation, but a plausible reason why they would not have informed anybody because of the deportation problem. So we felt that once we find the body, shows its natural causes, then our main exposure at that point is improper disposal of a body, and this is not going to be as bad as it's going to be, and we can actually come out looking good and that we can resolve this case for everybody. So we had this little map that she had drawn out for us, and we were leaving the jail cell when she says, hold on, got one more thing to tell you. So we stopped and said, what? She said, Zara's in pieces. Which then and now when I tell that story just put chills on the back of my neck because I was not prepared for that. And Went on to explain that that was something that Adam did while she was under the influence of drugs, that she was basically unconscious, did not realize what was going on, that Adam had performed that dismemberment. And at that point, Steve and I, and then calling Lisa and met with Lisa, we did not know how to proceed. We did not know what the truth was. We didn't know if she was more involved or if she just a witness where we could cooperate with the police and testify against Adam, who I felt if anybody had done this, it would have been Adam. I couldn't see a female doing this to a child. At least that was my opinion at the time. And we felt that before we could go to the police, before we could serve her up as a witness and cooperate and work out a deal, because of all her inconsistencies, because of the lies we caught her in, because we didn't really know which way was up at that point, we felt that we needed to corroborate her story before we felt comfortable going to the police or to Jay Gaither in the DA's office and trying to work something out. So we made numerous trips to Upper Lenoir, which is about 45 minutes from the jail, in attempts to try to find anything that would show that she was telling the truth. And it turned she wasn't telling the truth, or she was very confused because her directions were, we just led to wild goose chases. We never found anything. And it would be very frustrating to drive 45 minutes thinking we know exactly where we're going, find out these instructions, these directions are bogus, and then coming all the way back, her explaining what turned out to be BS, and sending us back out there, and that happened a number of times. She at once said that Adam had dropped a knife, a saw that was used in the dismemberment of this child in a drain pipe. We actually did find that on a Friday evening around 11 o'clock. The reason we're looking for it and not telling the police where to go for it is because we don't know what to believe, and before we serve our client up and as a witness, as a cooperating person with the Hickory Police Department, and try to mitigate her sentence or make sure that she's not charged with the murder, we felt we need to corroborate what she said, and if we found this saw with Adam's fingerprints on it, we're good to go. We actually found this saw, say 11, 12 o'clock at night in a storm drain. I'm sure Lisa went over this with you in pretty good detail. But we felt that we had to recover that saw that evening because of the forecast, which was not just for rain, but for torrential rain. I'd never seen a storm drain like this where it said, this water drains directly into Catawba River, which drains directly into the Atlantic Ocean. With the rain that was already starting, we felt in an hour or so that saw is going to be gone. We also felt, after speaking with the Capital Defender's Office, who has people that are a lot smarter than me, that sit back, they do the briefs, they do the reading, they look at fact scenarios and tell you what's ethical, what's not ethical. We felt that we were completely within our ethical boundaries in representing our client to take that saw, I call it a knife, saw, whatever it was. And we felt that by case law, by the rules of professional conduct, that we were perfectly within our rights to do that. To make sure, we actually left, went and retrieved a copy of the rules of professional conduct that were put out by the State Bar that try to govern fact scenarios like this. And we read through it as well as we could, felt that we were 100% within our bounds to take this knife or saw. We also contacted the Capital Defender's Office. They did the same research. They gave us the same opinion. At that point, we took it. It's about 12 o'clock at night. The next morning, we met up again very early and contacted Jay Gaither, the district attorney, to tell him we had to meet with him immediately. Unfortunately, he was in Charleston, South Carolina at a wedding. He said he would meet us back on Sunday. The following day, we met with him and Eric Bellis, his chief assistant, in Lisa Dubb's office the following day, and gave them a rundown of what we felt had occurred and what we felt that we could provide to the Hickory Police Department in resolving this case. At that time, I think everybody's main goal was to recover the remains of this child, which we felt that we could do. We entered into an agreement that we typed out in Ms. Dubb's office, where we agreed to be debriefed and tell everything that we knew, which was basically against Adam, that we agreed to take and lead the Hickory Police Department to the remains of Zara Baker. In exchange, the District Attorney's Office agreed not to charge Elisa Baker with anything greater than second-degree murder, which basically took first-degree murder off the table. It took the death penalty off the table. And at the time, with the public opinion as bad as it was against Elisa, I really felt that if she was charged with first-degree murder and this was a death penalty case, that she could receive the death penalty as far as the poison, the hate, the contempt that there was for Elisa Baker at the time. So we entered into that agreement on Sunday night, presented the saw to the Hickory Police Department, met the very next morning, and took the Hickory Police Department all over Caldwell County looking for Zara Baker. It became very apparent that wherever Elisa was taking us, which is about where she had told Lisa, Steve, and I the child was, that's not where Zara was. And we confronted her and said, you were going to have this agreement revoked. Obviously, you're lying to everybody. You're lying to us. You better show us where this child is. Whereupon, she decided to take us to a completely different place in Lenoir, the Christie Road area, where although they could not find anything, I felt that this was the general vicinity. Additionally, the one thing that was found that day was a prosthetic leg that was linked up to Zara. I think that was the only thing that was found that day. Elisa also gave a debriefing where she was caught in a number of inconsistencies, and then when the actual, basically what she said was she and Adam had dismembered this child, and then after that she was placed in a number of different bags where Adam drove the car and deposited the different bags in different areas in Lenoir. The evidence that scared me the most when the evidence actually came out was, everybody knows about phones pinging now. Back in 2010, I really wasn't aware that your phone leaves a trace. They can trace it to a particular cell tower. Well, it showed that on the date that Elisa says that Elisa and Adam were taking the remains all over Lenoir, it showed Adam's phone at his construction site in Lake Norman. Also, additionally, at least 4 or 5 other people who worked at that construction site gave him an alibi that he was in Lake Norman at the exact same time. Elisa's phone is pinging up in Caldwell County at all those different sites where the remains were found. Obviously, she's lying and lays credence to Adam's story that he had no clue what was going on. We also went into or got evidence of the house, and it showed to me a cover-up, the walls being painted, bleach being applied to different walls, which showed me that the child had not died of natural causes, but that something horrific had occurred in that home. And to me, at that point, I felt that we've got a very good chance that this agreement that we have is going to be declared null and void because they can show a number of material representations made by Elisa, and we're going to find ourselves with an upgrade indictment to first-degree murder and possibly a death penalty. Also, during that period of time, Elisa was charged with probably 6 other felonies, low-level felonies, but felonies nonetheless. The importance of that is one's sentence in North Carolina is determined by your prior record. The more of a prior record you have, the greater amount of time you're facing. And it was going to be the district attorney's strategy was to indict her for these lower level felonies unrelated to the child's death, but still charge her with these felonies, try to get convictions which would increase her sentencing points. Thereby, if she's later convicted of murder, her sentence, instead of being 15 years, could be 25 or 30 years. So, additionally, some items, some bones by that time had been found. They had been found to be Zara Baker's bones. However, you could not determine cause of death from the bones that were found. It was always our worry that the head that had never been found, that skull eventually would be found. And if that skull was found before we entered a plea, then if it showed some type of cause of death, say blunt trauma to the head or a bullet hole or a knife or something like that, then that would also be a material representation, and then we have a very serious chance of being charged with first-degree murder and possibly receiving the death penalty, which I thought this would qualify for a death penalty case. So at that point, we decided to enter a plea of guilty to second-degree murder. All of the other charges that she had were consolidated into it, and she received a presumptive range sentence of 15 years. The actual sentence is 15 to 18 years, but she has enough game time that she will get down to 15 years. A little bit later on after that, she pled guilty to the federal drug charges, where I believe she received an extra 10 years at the expiration of the sentence she does for the second-degree murder. At that point, I was out of the case, thankfully. Representing her was very difficult, I think, for a period of time. Since I was associated with her, I was not a very popular person. My wife and I decided not to eat out for probably a year. 3 of our 4 children attended Newton Conover High School. They were 100% against me representing Elisa, and it caused a lot of friction in our home at the supper table every night. And, I tried to explain to them that when I am court appointed, I don't have a choice. It's not like I can return her money and say, I'm not going to take your case. When I'm court appointed, just like anybody else who is court appointed, we have a duty, and we have taken an oath as attorneys, as defense attorneys, that we are going to do our best to zealously represent our clients, no matter how bad the situation is. We were going to do our best to represent them, and that is what I tried to do. At one point, I was hopeful that we were going to be able to resolve this case, and it was going to be Adam. I still have a lot of unanswered questions about Adam. I have a lot of unanswered questions about what happened. Unfortunately, even if Zara died of natural causes because of all the lies and inconsistencies and things that